So around 18 months ago now, I started an experiment. I wanted to see if I could learn Spanish without opening a textbook, without attending a traditional class for Spanish, without looking at flashcards, just through absorbing comprehensible input. So 1,500 hours later of comprehensible input, whether that being Dreaming Spanish videos, YouTube, podcasts, native content, conversations. Has it worked? Spoiler, it has. So going back to my first sort of contact with learning a second language, this would have been when I was at school, at secondary school, maybe when I was between the ages of 12 and 14 years old anyway. And it would have been in a compulsory French class. Being from Scotland, the area that I was in, the compulsory second language that you kind of had to learn for a little bit was French. And yeah, as you can imagine, in the traditional sort of classroom setup that was sort of vocabulary based, grammar rules based, a few sort of like basics, learning how to say what's your name, how are you, I'm good, etc. But yeah, nothing stuck. And I just felt when I was a kid that this. Also, you kind of feel that the second language is maybe not something that you're going to use in the future, and it's not something that I want to do. But it also just felt like nothing stuck. Like nothing that I was learning was actually I wasn't really absorbing anything. And then I decided to retrace these footsteps of classroom-based language learning. I attended a community-based Spanish class when I was living in Glasgow in Scotland. It was like a charity class for beginners. And yeah, it was the same story. I met a lot of funny people who had similar goals to me in learning Spanish, had some interesting stories. But yeah, it was just the exact same sort of school setup, vocabulary, verb conjugations, stuff like this very early on. And yeah, this was only at the start of last year. And it made me really think that, I'm just not good at languages. If this is the way that people learn languages, and I've met people who can speak multiple languages, maybe I'm just not someone that can do that. So yeah, shortly after doing this sort of community class and realising that, wow, this really isn't working for me, I actually did a little bit of research on YouTube on how to learn languages, etc. And I stumbled across a video by Matt Brooks Green. Shout out Matt. He is great in this sort of space on YouTube around language learning. And I think the title was something like How to Learn a Second Language the Lazy Way. Very sort of clickbait. So obviously I clicked it. And yeah, it's sort of, in this video, I was introduced to the sort of comprehensible input method, this idea of not having to memorize grammar rules and do classroom sort of things, but just sit down, watch some videos, absorb content, and let your brain do the work for you, basically, in your subconscious. And this video then led me into another one of Matt's about whether dreaming Spanish is a waste of time. And I think he'd mentioned dreaming Spanish a little bit in his first video, so I wanted to kind of delve a little bit deeper into it. Which I found interesting and kind of sparked a bit of curiosity in me. And from that, I went into the Dreaming Spanish website and read Pablo's blog. And yeah, it was definitely, I feel like Matt's videos have kind of sparked my curiosity in this space, but when I actually read Pablo's blog that he has around the Dreaming Spanish method, the comprehensible input method, it just really made sense logically to me from people that I'd met who could speak multiple languages. There wasn't a lot of praises said about the traditional setting of being in a classroom. It was around other things. It was around watching movies, TV, reading books, having conversations in the street with people, like things like that. So yeah, it really did make sense to me that his sort of blog post about comprehensible input. So from that, I decided, you know what, let's give this a proper try. So the first 50 to 100 hours of basically just watching Dreaming Spanish, super beginner then beginner videos. It was a bit of a tough time because, you're watching these very straightforward, simple videos, whether that be Pablo drawing stick figures or, and Andrea trying to describe what's inside of a mystery box. Yeah, you really are kind of sitting there thinking, is this actually doing anything? Like, what am I doing? Am I just watching some like really sort of childish, poor level content, and am I wasting my time? So you start to doubt yourself, definitely in the first few hundred hours. You kind of feel like nothing's happening, and yeah, that's definitely how I felt at the start. But I decided to just push through and keep going, and start off with a small goal, maybe an hour a day, an hour and a half a day, because it definitely is tough to get through the initial hours, because you're not used to the language, you're watching some pretty childish level content. So yeah, but I kept going. And then, once you get to, I wish I tracked this more in detail, but once you get to a certain level, say maybe around 300 hours, and you start being able to understand intermediate level content in Dreaming Spanish, you start picking up on words and common phrases, and they start to stick. And you suddenly start to understand that you're understanding parts of conversations, and this was really when I was like, wow, this is working. Like, my brain is actually tuning into this language, and I'm, without even thinking in English, I'm understanding what these people are saying. And this is where maybe my Dreaming Spanish journey kind of tails off a bit from a lot of people. I'm actually currently speaking to you from Ecuador. I'm traveling Latin America just now. I've been traveling for the last 10 months. And I started my trip in Colombia. So when I arrived in Colombia, I think I had around 350 to 400 hours worth of Dreaming Spanish videos and comprehensible input through podcasts, whatever, that I'd logged. And it was here in Colombia where I started to attend one-on-one Spanish lessons with a tutor in a school which had lots of tutors actually. But during these lessons, I basically said to my tutors, I don't want to look at grammar rules, focus on any vocabulary, much written stuff. I just want you to have a conversation with me, basically. Even after these 300 to 400 hours worth of Dreaming Spanish videos that I'd watched, I was actually having very, very, very basic level conversations with these locals, these teachers from Colombia. I could understand a lot of what they were saying. I could get a lot of the messaging. Obviously, my ability to speak was very poor, but I said, is it okay if I can just speak English? And even if I speak English to you, you can speak back to me in Spanish. And yeah, it was actually really surprising at this, small level of hours that I could understand a lot of the conversation that I was having with my tutor. Yeah, with more and more of these one-on-one lessons, and also watching content after the lessons had finished, you really start to feel a bit of a snowball effect where it becomes easier and easier to start absorbing more and more things the bigger your foundation is. And then once maybe I'd been at the school for a few months, I started working my way into native content, into YouTubers, more advanced level podcasts, dubbed cartoons, dubbed anime in Latino Spanish. And a lot of it was making sense. This was maybe around 800 hours of comprehensible input, being that through videos, conversations, etc. A lot of different ways that I received input, but at the end of the day, it was just input. I wasn't looking at grammar rules or in a classroom environment. It was just listening and trying to understand the messaging. So yeah, when I was at this level, it's the sort of the experience of getting input becomes a lot more enjoyable. The snowball really starts to roll, because you're watching things that you normally watch in English and actually enjoy. Like, isn't just for educational purposes. It's because you want to watch this show. You want to understand this podcast. You're interested in this subject, this educational subject. And I realised that as my comprehension level was getting higher, my speaking ability would sort of tail behind my comprehension level. As my comprehension got better, my speaking ability would be tracking behind it, but it would be following at a similar pace. So yeah, fast forward to now, bit of a time skip, but yeah, with my pretty free calendar and traveling and stuff, I've really been able to put a lot of time into getting comprehensible input in during my travels. I'm currently at close to 1,600 hours, well over 1,500 hours now, and yeah, in terms of speaking to locals one-on-one, I have absolutely no problems in terms of sorting out issues, whether that be at a bus station or ordering food or having one-on-one conversations with locals that you meet in a bar. Going to dance socials, even dancing salsa, bachata with locals, asking them to dance, asking them where they're from, having these conversations one-on-one. I really don't have much of a problem with. Obviously, my speaking ability really is nowhere near native level, but I can get my message across and I can understand almost everything that comes my way. And yeah, I mean, in terms of like understanding content at this level, it really is limitless, unless it's like a really difficult dialect or accent. Everything that's sort of, neutral is no problem. I'm watching, plenty of native content on YouTube, different YouTubers traveling from different parts of Latin America now, like Chile, Argentina, Colombia, anywhere, travelers, vloggers, educational channels, things like that. And also dubbed shows, dubbed anime, dubbed cartoons, no problem whatsoever. And even recently, I kind of was putting it off for a while because I'm not a big fan of watching dubbed content that's not animated, I guess, because it just, the way that the mouth movements and the voices don't really match up. But I've been to the cinema here a couple of times to watch some of the summer blockbusters like F1, Fantastic Four. I'm probably going to go and watch Superman as well. Not the best movies ever, but enjoyable. And yeah, watching them dubbed in Latino Spanish and have absolutely no problems understanding what's being said. And yeah. Also at this level, I've started introducing like other tools, I guess, that maybe weren't really accessible to me at the start of my journey, such as books that are actually good. I'm currently reading The Hunger Games in Spanish on the first book just now. This is another topic that I'll maybe go into another video, but yeah, I'm currently at a level where I can read sort of teenage level fiction books and with little to no problem. Obviously there'll be new words, but I use Kindle, so if I really struggle to understand from the context what a word is, I can just look it up and can continue on no problem. I've also branched out into playing games. Like I got like a little retro device that's like a Game Boy Advance SP, and I've been playing like RPGs that I've never really had the time, or was kind of past my generation, the classics to play, but in Spanish. Whether that's like Chrono Trigger, Ace Attorney, these sort of like visual novel type video games that are super enjoyable, but in Spanish. So yeah, at this level, it really does feel like you're playing with the language. You're trying new things. You're having more fun compared to maybe the beginning or the mid intermediate stage. That's where I'm at just now. Is I'm enjoying it. I'm playing with it. My speaking ability still really isn't at native level. I make mistakes. I struggle with certain tenses and things like that. But in terms of basic conversations and keeping up with people that you meet on the streets and things with brand new information that comes to you, can be a bit of a struggle. But in general, like I can get by no problem, which is something that is just crazy to me to think that 18 months ago I couldn't even understand a word of Spanish. And yeah, even though my Spanish isn't perfect, like comparing myself to a year and a half ago, it's just night and day, totally night and day. So yeah, is dreaming Spanish a waste of time? No. I don't know, pretty obvious from the context of what I've been speaking about. No, it's not a waste of time. And the comprehensible input method in general is definitely not a waste of time. In my opinion, dreaming Spanish is the perfect first step for someone who is like me, who had maybe tried to learn a language in the past, and with certain normal traditional methods, textbooks, classroom environments, all the rest of it. I think that dreaming Spanish, beginner videos working up to intermediate through that sort of scale from levels 1 to 5 or whatever through the first few hundred hours is the perfect way to start your Spanish learning journey, and to give you that, the gamification, but not the useless Duolingo kind of streak, but like actually, counting how many hours you've put into absorbing input, and you feel your progress more substantially when you're just listening to content and you're understanding new phrases and words from locals. I will say that, yeah, at the start, it definitely takes patience, this method. It's not going to go from 0 to 100 in the first 30 days. I really don't think that you can learn it. I know there's a lot of people that will tell you can learn a language in, less than 100 days or whatever, in 3 months, but If you really want to get to grips with the language, I think the reality is that it's going to take time. So yeah, patience really is a virtue when it comes to the comprehensible input method and starting with Dreaming Spanish. Especially at the start, as I said, the videos can be pretty tough to watch, not the best, sort of childish. I've not really watched some of the new stuff that Dreaming Spanish have been putting out because I moved into intermediate and advanced content about a year ago, so maybe it's improved. But yeah, that doesn't stop it from being, in my opinion, the best sort of launch platform into your Spanish journey through Dreaming Spanish. With that said, I want to express like some real heartfelt gratitude to Pablo and the team at Dreaming Spanish, because I feel like without these guys kind of like waving the flag for comprehensible input, making it into a sort of product that's more easily digestible for beginners, something that's just ready out of the tin. Here you go, here's your method, here's the content, here's what you have to do, here's a way to kind of like track your hours, here's what goal you should be setting if you want to make serious progress. Like, yeah, without Dreaming Spanish as a tool, I just really don't think that my Spanish would be as good as it is now, or if at all, in any way, shape or form that good. And as well, like my trip that I've been currently on for the last 10, 11 months in Latin America it just wouldn't have been the same. I wouldn't have been able to connect with locals in the same way. I wouldn't have been able to have the same interactions with people and form the same memories. And yeah, it really is. I'm just so grateful to Pablo and you guys waving the flag for this way of learning Spanish and learning different languages, because it worked for me. So to wrap things up after that, thank you to the team. I really encourage, if you're someone watching this video and you're brand new to Spanish, I just say, just try Dreaming Spanish, try reading through Pablo's blog, watching some of his videos on how to learn a language and seeing if you vibe with the idea. And yeah, and even at the start, it's going to feel like nothing's happening. Please just trust the process and stick with it, at least for the first couple 100 hours, and until you start seeing progress. And for intermediate people who are maybe 500-600 hours and have just really been in Dreaming Spanish, I really encourage you guys to branch out as well. There's lots of different sort of things that you can move into in terms of maybe some YouTubers who speak about sort of more basic level things, and some educational content that you're interested in. And yeah, and I feel like once you kind of start branching out from the Dreaming Spanish content, of course it's good to still watch Dreaming Spanish. I still watch Dreaming Spanish videos that I find interesting. But once you start branching out into these other sort of content worlds, stuff that really, really drags you in, creators that you're really interested in, that is when the snowball just is gathering so much momentum. But yeah, I hope that this is kind of maybe given someone the extra push that they needed to kind of like have faith in this comprehensible input method and give it a go, start it, because I promise you that if you start it and that you stick with it, you will not regret it.